Good morning and welcome to the Sports Desk, streamed live on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with producer Alden Iowani. Our special guest today is St. Pius girls basketball coach, Bria Rodet. And Coach, thanks so much for joining us. A great pleasure to have you.
Sure. I'm glad I was able to get on. Thank you.
You know, Coach, you got such an extensive resume here. And one of the first things I want to talk to you about, you played at Rio Rancho Gatorade Player of the Year 2 times under Coach McIntyre. And I've forgotten you played 5 years for Coach Mac.
Yeah, I
And,
did.
and I'd forgotten you played as an eighth grader, and people forget that. And I had to be reminded of that. You can play eighth graders at Rio Rancho.
Right.
Coach Mac and I had an extensive talk. I told you how far back I go with Coach McIntyre. Years, years and years. And so we had an extensive talk. But what I wanted to ask you about is, we're right now in the middle of an uncertain time for athletics. Now at Pius, this is your second year. You took over for Phil Griego. And I'll tell you, my son went to Pius, coached at Pius. I've known Phil for years. So when I saw you on the bench there, it was a little bit like, where's Phil, right? Because you're just so used to it. Phil was a fixture there. Now, your first year, I thought you had some good success. Talk a little bit about joining the staff there. Why was that a good fit for Bria Rodet joining the staff there at St. Pius?
I've known Phil my whole life. So I sat down with him prior to even saying I was going to accept the job, just get his feel on things, see how things are going. I really didn't want to coach girls basketball. I wanted to stay in the boys' world. I do have a personal connection to Pius. And so my mom went there. I have auntie, everybody's been there. So I felt like I was kind of getting tugged to go there. But it's been a good thing prior to COVID. You come into a program where somebody's been there like Coach Griego for 17 plus years. There's going to be a lot of things you have to kind of put your own stamp on. And so it took a whole year to kind of just get that started. COVID is not friendly when you have to figure out, COVID just puts a halt on everything. So for me, in all honesty, we're going to start all over. I mean, you can't, you've had an almost zero contact until recently. So it's been just a hard first year. we're going to have another first year, I think, just because of, how COVID had played out. But
I think it's important to know, Coach, and I know what you're talking about. No camps during the summer, no individual skills development, the things that we work on, the shooting, the weightlifting, all the things we work on in the off season has kind of gone by the wayside.
Right.
So it's a restart, and those were just true words. And I want to mention your mom, Charlotte Goodwin Rodet, one heck of a player back at Pius back in the day, man. You came from some good stock. She was an all-state player, one heck of a player for sure, and your coach for many years. But I think that's important to note, Coach. And you mentioned this. I went to your Facebook and I saw one of the things you put out about we're in a funky time with athletics, right? And you're right. Your message to kids was it's on you also. It's hard to get looks in New Mexico, right? But it's not. That's on you. Explain a little bit what you said. I thought the message was great. You're great with kids. Talk a little bit about what you meant there.
Yeah, I just think that, we there's only so much we can control. So our circumstances are what they are. And I felt kind of passionate that day because I had seen a lot of just negative things going on. There's a lot of people fighting for our kids. And my message was really that our parents are supposed to fight for us, but that our kids are supposed to maybe just working a little bit harder than what I see. That we can, yes, there's been a halt on sports, but it doesn't, you can get stronger, you can get faster, you can put up shots, you can go outside. There's so many things that we could be doing to make sure that when the time comes that we're back on the court or back on the field, that we're ready to go. And I hope that I see that. I haven't seen a whole lot of it as far as like posted or people that I'm around. There is a lot of, there's just a lot of kids that don't know maybe what direction to go, how to do it, and they feel down. And so my message is more of like, yes, we can, we're stuck in a situation, but kids in New Mexico don't get looks, not very easily at least. So us not playing right now and the majority of states playing does hurt us, but it's not an end all. It's not like we can't get seen, we can't approach coaches, we can't send out emails, we can't be forward thinking and get our name out there. But we can't do all that if we're not working. And I think that the work part maybe gets lost in translation. So I'm hoping that we, that was really my point. It was like, there's a lot of things you can do even though we're not playing. A lot of kids like just to play the games, but the behind the scenes stuff, which is something my mom just instilled in me, you know, the fundamental stuff, you can do that with no court. So, you know, I use my platforms to show that, or to encourage that, especially with kids in New Mexico. So, you know, hopefully somebody's listening.
No, you know what? You got a lot of good response from that, and you work with kids. We're going to get into the student athlete headquarters here in a second, but I think when you mentioned it's a very trying time, it is. And those things you mentioned, you know, even me growing up playing, I had encouragement from Coach Duffy, Coach at Pius, Coach Lucero, Coach. You're right. My brother played at Pius, man. Yeah. My brother was a dang good player, so I wanted to be as good as my brother was, right? And so those are the encouragements in around the neighborhood. Competitive, go. I'm still so competitive. I hate losing more than I like winning. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So those things that you mentioned, yes, I get it, and the message is great, and hopefully somebody's paying attention, because the development, the things you want to do, and you mentioned. Now, again, we'll talk about SAHQ here, but the fundamentals of the game. When I went to camps back in the day at the old St. Pius, and it was Lincoln Galassini and Henry Sanchez, the great Bernalillo coach. Now, the passing, the around through the legs, the basic game fundamentals of the game. And a lot of kids, you know, these days, I read a youth game last year, and people are just jacking threes with no sense of any kind of flow, right? So you're talking about shooting, speed shooting, free throw shooting, rebounding, defense, so many things that make up basketball.
Yeah, I think, my mom's fundamental. She's a fundamental queen. She's been coaching for 35 years, hundreds of kids. You know, not everybody likes to do the boring stuff, the ball handling every day, the shooting 1,000 shots every day, things I grew up doing. I don't know how else to teach it or to get it out there besides telling you my personal experience with it. So, you know, like you said, we grew up playing around people that were just competitive, and that was what we did for fun. And so, you know, we didn't have the social media and the phones and, you know, the things that were going on that our kids are dealing with right now. But if you want it bad enough, there's a lot of ways that you can get better. And it's not always the fun stuff. It's just the boring stuff that gets you progressively better. So I think, you know, I am pro. I like to put on a show when I play. So I think that the fancy stuff is necessary, but you can't do the fancy stuff without having the fundamentals. So, you know, I'm always encouraging our kids to just be with a ball in their hand. Our kids will show up, and I mean our kids, like the kids that I work with, they'll show up. You tell them to come from 5 to 7 p.m. They're going to work hard. I've never met a kid that comes to me and doesn't work hard. I think my issue right now is that they show up when you tell them to show up. And anything outside of that, they're having a hard time with. And so that's my encouragement of, if you want to get out of New Mexico, if that's what your goal is to get a scholarship anywhere, D1, D2, whatever, you got to put in the work.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned you like putting on a show. I got to smile at that, because Coach McIntyre, he alluded to that. And he said a couple of times he wanted you to put on shows. Yeah. You know, he told me that last night. And I'll get to a little story here that I want to tell. You know, I got a couple quotes from Coach, and I had to smile at that, because, it's a show, right? I mean, right? But you got to be good enough, man. You just can't go out there without putting in that work. And there's got to be somewhat of drive and determination to get better. You can't do it by on the couch, right? And it's hard. You mentioned all the things that kids have distracting them, the social media. Back in the day, you know, there was none of that, right? You know, so myself, Coach Rodriguez, Ray Rodriguez, we break in to Highland on Sunday just to play, to play. That's how bad we wanted to get better. Coach, I wanted to ask you. You started SAHQ in 2012 with your daughter's dad and your mom. Talk a little bit about that, because it's an incredible, training facility. Talk about that.
Well, we had started in San Diego with a summer program. That's kind of our bread and butter. And we were taking athletes, football, soccer, baseball, basketball, you name it. You know, we do sand hills and speed and agility. It's a tough camp, but it was based off of like our experience in college and the things we wanted it to be hard. So it was weekly, and it would go, you know, we'd do 5 or 6 weeks of it. And my mom had ended up getting a building out here, and kind of drew us back to Albuquerque. And we started off slow. You know, it turned into an amazing thing. I think for me, the most important thing that I see, especially I have a 10-year-old daughter who's grown up in it. is culture is really important, and just having people surrounding her, surrounding the kids that we have with just like-minded drive to be better and be better in school, be better as a human, be better as a teammate, as a daughter, that all sports is just a tool in order to teach all that. And so at SAC, we do that. It's everybody from the college athletes to my 3-year-olds have the same expectation. We have the same expectation of them. So we started SAC then. We work with all athletes, all levels. We have a few basketball teams, girls and boys. A lot of the kids that are at Highland, we are guardians for that are from Mexico. So there's just a lot of kids in and out. There's a lot of adults. We do adult training. It's just a big building that we've been very blessed with. It's really hard to, volunteer and keep it up, but we've been blessed with the opportunity to touch a lot of kids' lives and adult lives, and vice versa. They touch our lives every day. So COVID's made it a little bit tough, but we kind of pushed through and did pods all summer. And so we just have some amazing families that are associated with us now. It's been cool.
That's quite a lot. I think the thing about you said, though, being a better person, right? Now, when I talked to Coach Woody, and hi to Justin Woody, the boys basketball coach, he mentions that all the time. Anytime I go talk to the team, he mentions that we got to be better people. We're not always, and Coach Ray Rodriguez said this too, that most kids, 99% will not play after high school, right? So I think the things that you're trying to do there, and you mentioned it's been quite a challenge during COVID, but you also run a LLC called Bria Form. Talk a little bit about that.
So that's just associated with, it came from SAC. I'm a part of SAC. SAC's my family. But it's my personal brand that's just, I've always been posting stuff, and it's more of a lifestyle. I wanted just to encourage people, kind of started as just encouraging mothers, encouraging people. But now when COVID hit, I was just doing live workouts every day at noon. And that kind of grew into something bigger because I just felt like people need encouraging on just movement and creating healthy lifestyle habits. So I think when we think of healthy lifestyle, we think of this big, ginormous picture, and it's like can be overwhelming. So, you break it down into small daily goals, 20-minute workouts, healthy eating habits. For me, being an example to my daughter and showing her hard work, that's a big deal. But so the form is just, forming healthy lifestyles, and it's my private basketball training, it's my private adult training, private client training, but it's also just kind of an online platform. So I offer like online workouts, and I just put out a new program where I have like bands, and they get to do home workouts. So I think people think that you have to have a gym membership and you have to have this, all this money to be fit and to be healthy, and that being fit and healthy is like a physical thing. And I think we lose the sight in the fact that there's a big mental capacity to that too. So just putting everything together that SAC kind of embodies and putting it into my own, how I approach life, and sharing that pretty much is how that works.
A lot of motivation there, and I think it's positive for sure, because you're a good example there. Now, I want to ask you this, and I can only imagine the answer. What's been the challenge doing this program during running Bria Form during COVID? What's been the challenge?
For us, it was kind of a way for me to keep our families encouraged at SAC. So that's how it started for me. We were all stuck at home right when COVID hit. I wanted to make sure that our kids were still moving. So the live workouts was the start of that. And actually, for my personal brand, Bria Form, it kind of took off and gave me the motivation. Maybe it just gave me some time to put it all together and like grow with it. So as far as that's concerned, COVID in that aspect has helped me and kind of encouraged me to keep going with the online platform. SAC had to take some hits because we couldn't do some things in person. And so that was kind of trying to counteract, because ultimately, yes, I have to take care of my family, my mom and dad, like our families have to be taken care of financially, but our motivation has always been to better our kids and our community in Albuquerque. And so for us, we just try to pivot. My mom always says, like, you got to pivot. Things happen, you got to pivot. And so that was my pivot when COVID hit.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be back with St. Pius girls basketball coach Bria Rodet after these messages on the Sports Desk.
It's a gorgeous pass.
Here's what he'll
just shoot it.
He's going to go all the way.
He's going to fire at the buzzer, and he hits.
Great pass, Hadbury, and thank you very much. Tie in the district. Inside, fly, Eagles.
Chavez uses some athleticism. And then Morris down low, able to finish. You called it, Steve, in 10 seconds. And look at this. Stripped, stolen Watson. Christian Lucero beats the buzzer. Here's Ian Chavez, the sharpshooter. Got it.
Said that anything better. He answered the question. He
On
got
a
another one.
steal at the buzzer. Back to back for Chavez.
To the paint. Medina from the volleyball lines. Medina wants another one from deep. Oh, he wants 10. Give him 10.
Lewis finds Watson. He's going to finish. One-handed slam. Vista, but just all the different scenarios we can see potentially play out ahead of the state tournament.
Hill, the senior top.
No! Ho, ho, ho!
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a number one. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth that's real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Sports Network.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk, stream live on Facebook with producer Alden Iwani. I'm your host, Ed Nunez. Our special guest today, St. Pius Girls head basketball coach, Bria Rodet. And Coach, again, thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, Coach, again, under Bobby McIntyre, you were the Gatorade Player of the Year 2 times, and that's very impressive. Played as an 8th grader, but I got a little story that Coach Mac shared with me. So one time going to Gallup, he said that you forgot your jersey, right? You forgot your jersey, and sometimes when people forget jerseys, man, I know my number 40 was like my number 40, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a number. Yeah. So Coach says you put on number 50. He had an extra number 50, right?
Yeah.
He had an extra 50. So calls a timeout. And he says, everybody, nobody, nothing but layups, right? Nothing but layups. And the game's already in hand. He says, you make an L cut, go out to the 3-point line, 25 feet away, swish. Game over. You put you guys up by 11 at Gallup, put you up by 11, game over. The funny thing he said to me, though, was that after that, anytime you went to Gallup, and even Gallup fans coming here to Rio Rancho, they'd ask you for your autograph.
Yeah. First of all, I would go back and play for Bobby Mack. And if you said today, if you could go back to play in high school and play with Bobby Mack, I would do it today. We had a very cool understanding of each other, and I think that's why it worked. He is mistaken, though. He didn't say layups. He said take a shot that you know you can make.
You're right. He did say that. No, he did say that. You're right. Yeah.
So I took a shot I knew I could make, and that's he was like, that's the shot I wanted to take. So we have a million stories of he said something and I kind of bite back, and we just understood each other in that way. Gallup is a special place for me to play. We've had some rivals back then. They were known to hold the ball, and games would be 32-30. Not very fun games that way, but I wanted to make it more fun. So I would shoot far shots or, poke fun, whatever, just making it fun. But even as a coach at Sandia, we went and played in Gallup, and Alvin was like, we're going to get off this bus and somebody's going to know her. And we went to a restaurant and they're like, Bria. So it's just a cool place to play. I don't know. I had people that would like send me things in the mail and make me jewelry and just do cool, amazing things. And I don't really know why, but it was always fun to play there.
You know, you're right. I'll tell you what, Gallup is, you know, we understand how popular girls basketball. John Lamonisi, when he was coach there, they packed the pit, right? Anytime Gallup came, they packed the pit. I did a district championship out there one time as an official. Place was packed. And in the third, in the third quarter, like in sync, they had this chant. And I was like, whoa, man. So it's an incredibly intimidating place, but Coach McIntyre wanted me to make sure, and he did say that. Only a shot you know you can make. And he said you drain. He loved you. He just, by the way, he also said, even as an 8th grader, you were never intimidated, never scared. You know, and 8th graders might be intimidated against playing against. I remember when I was a sophomore, I got a little varsity action. I was like, man, against El Paso Bowie, and I probably wasn't ready for that. But Coach Mack said that, again, that's probably, you know, your mother helping you with that. He said you were never afraid or never intimidated. Just a very compliment. He loves you to death. He's got another story, and I'll share with that in a minute. But you know what I wanted to ask you too, you did coach under Alvin Broussard, and I've got, you know, the former University of San Francisco star, the former Valley star, played for the Thunderbirds here in town. And I got to tell you, it's funny, man. When I ref these games as a player, Alvin had a quick temper, man. He'd get the ball and throw it down the court, man. You know, if he got mad about a call, right? As a coach, he's a lot more calmer. He'd say, Ed, does that really happen? Yeah, well, yes, coach, it did. And he wouldn't yell or anything. You know, he's kind of a calm guy. Talk about what you learned under, because again, one of a very good coach and a very good man. I really think the world of Coach Broussard. Talk about what you learned under his tutelage when you coached under him.
I mean, I have to give him credit because not a lot of people want to hire a female or take on that. It's just different, right? And I don't think it should be, but it is, and there's something behind that. And he kind of reached out to me. I had taken some of his players that were on, you know, C team lower in, not playing a lot, and I had taken them in the summer with my mom, and they got better. And so he was like, hey, do you want to come coach? And so I was blessed with an amazing group of men there that I would consider family. You know, we had each other's back and we learned from each other. Every single one of them, everybody that coached at Sandia, whether they stayed there the whole time I was there or didn't, I have a good relationship with, and I learned something from them. I think that Alvin has a good way about coaching in that he doesn't try to overcoach. He does the things that he's good at, and he surrounds himself with people that are good at something else. And so he allows others to have input and make this whole connection. He's not as calm as he might seem. He might be calm on the outside as far as downstairs on the court. The locker room can be a different picture. I think he's broken his hand twice or 3 times. He's passionate for sure. But he feels the game, and honestly, he loves every boy that he's ever coached deeply. So I think, you know, I was just blessed to have that opportunity and to coach under the people that were there. Sean Fisher, who was his assistant coach too, he's an X and O. He really knows his X and O's. I just think the team of coaches, I mean, I could go on and on. Everybody that was at Sandia at the time brought something to the table, and I think that we all loved and respected each other. So for me, it was a really good time.
Coach, let me ask you this. You know, now we're seeing, I think one of the things you're saying, don't put me in a box. You're coaching St. Pius girls now, and I think you're going to do a great job. You know, you mentioned you got to hit the reset button a little bit. We're in trying uncharted waters with the pandemic. It may take a time to develop that program and work, because people don't understand, again, behind the scenes, the shooting, the rebounding, player development, the weight training, the whole thing, right? Yeah. So, you know, but let me ask you this. Now, we're seeing this in the NBA, right? Becky Harmon is an assistant with San Antonio, and she's coached the Summer League. I think there's a chance she may become the first NBA women's coach. I think there's a very good chance. Now, so you're saying this too, then. Let me just ask you this. If there's a guy's job open, you might apply.
Yeah, I don't think I shy away from the fact that that's what I want to do. I love coaching our girls at Pius. They're all good girls. I think, you know, the game is the same. Universally, the women's game and the men's game, the same rules apply. We're shooting, we're rebounding, it all applies. But it is coached differently, and it is played differently. A boys' game and a girls' game is just played a little bit differently. And then the dynamics of coaching. I think, we forget that, yes, there's X and O's, but if you're a good coach, which I know so many good coaches here in New Mexico, you are dealing with them forever. You're dealing with them off the court, in their personal lives, in school, their goals, their parents, everything that goes into coaching. And girls come with a little bit more issues. It's just how we are in high school. And, I think that they run with their emotions differently. And so for me, that was always, to be really honest with you, the thing that I didn't want to go coach girls basketball. I felt like I kind of spoke the language of boys basketball. So, and if I'm being 100% transparent, I like doing things differently. So that might've just been, I wanted to be different, and I enjoyed this side of it. So I'm really blessed to be at Pius. It's been a hard time because when you're trying to start culture and you're trying to be different, as far as I'm just a different voice and a different person that's been there for the last 17 years, when you have a major halt when you just got started, it's hard to come back from that. So
it is. There's no doubt about it. You got to have a restart. But talk a little bit about as of now, St. Pius is going to play, right?
Yeah, and I know I don't know all the details yet. I know we kind of have a rough date of middle of March to middle of May. I don't even know what that consists of. I got word of who we'd be playing because not everybody's playing, so we had to kind of change we would be playing. I lost a lot of players. A lot of my players did not want to, families didn't want to pay private tuition for online schooling, so a lot of my players left a private school and went to public. So I'm almost starting over as far as player development stuff is going. So that doesn't worry me. It's okay. But culture is going to take time to build in a certain way, in the way that I want it. We all do things differently. That's going to take a little bit of time. And I don't shy away from that. My expectations are pretty high, and that's not everybody's cup of tea. So I think last year I started with like 32 people in the summer, and we had 20 kids stick with it. So it's just who wants it in the way that I'm going to have a program, that there's expectations that not everybody wants to do. They might want to try something else. That's okay too.
No, that's perfectly understandable. Again, uncharted waters. You will get some of those kids back. Got about 30 seconds left. And you mentioned you and Santana Gonzalez are going to be running some kind of a camp during in a couple of weeks. Talk about that. Get that plug out for the camp.
Yeah. Well, Santana and I are trying to find a way for her to. We always honor her mom in a tournament, so we're trying to find different ways that we can honor her mom. But SAC is running a March Madness clinic. So for 4 weeks, we're going to have kids from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. And we will have each week is a new skill development. So every week's a new emphasis. And that's Mondays. We start with our kindergartens are at 4, and then we have a 5 o'clock session and a 6 o'clock session. So you can get on Facebook or our website at sahq.org. And sign up for that, or I'll put my information on whatever I post so you guys can have it too.
St. Pius girls basketball coach Bria Rodet, gosh, thanks so much for joining us. We wish you well in all your endeavors. And again, let me know if I can help out at SAC. I'd love to come by and help out.
Yeah, absolutely. More the merrier. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next Tuesday on the Sports Desk.